Welcome back, everybody, to the Luke Beasley Show, Patreon members-only bonus show, except it is going to be released to everyone, so people on YouTube will be watching this. Podcast listeners, I will also upload it in audio form for you guys as well, so that you can get a taste of what the new format of the Luke Beasley Show bonus show will look like, what you would be getting if you go to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. And on the show today, we're going to be talking about Chris Wallace getting pressed about why he left Fox News, the fact that National Archives long ago was asking Trump to give back documents, but of course he didn't, a conservatives-only dating app, and much more. It's going to be lots of fun, so definitely stick around. Super fun stories. But to give you kind of the summary or explanation for what the bonus show new style is going to be, pretty much I'm going to collect throughout the week stories that either weren't important enough for the main show, they were too short, wouldn't fill out an entire segment, or I just didn't get to them for whatever reason, and collect those and then deliver them all in a bonus show on Saturdays for the patrons. And so each week, people who go to patreon.com/Luke Beasley and become a member will get a Saturday bonus show with a bunch of extra content, super fun, a lot more lighthearted than our Monday through Friday show. Probably, I expect, because those are kind of like the less important stories that I might grab onto, and just extra content. But you're also helping me make the show happen by being a member. And if you're not familiar already, if you haven't heard this explanation before, when you become a patron, you also get the full video version of the show every single day. So if you're watching it on YouTube, for example, you're just getting one story at a time. You know, here's this story, it gets uploaded throughout the day. That means that maybe a story I did today doesn't come out until tomorrow on YouTube or whatever it is. But if you're a patron, you get the full video version of the show right after I record it. Boom, it's sent out to everybody, and you can watch the entire show kind of in one fluid format, which I think is super nice. And so definitely lots of stuff there. Full video and a Saturday bonus show. And this is the first time I'm doing this style of the bonus show. It's kind of a new format. And that's why I'm releasing to everyone, so that you can get a taste of it. With all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our first story of the bonus show. So Chris Wallace got pressed by Bill Maher on his show about why he really left Fox News. And I think we all assumed it was because Chris Wallace couldn't take the wacky Looney Tunes nature of Fox News anymore. But he didn't want to admit that. It was really weird. So if you're not familiar, Chris Wallace was one of the rare kind of more reasonable people on Fox News, and he would be more moderate and more logical and stuff like that, even though I'm sure he's more conservative than you or I, but definitely a good, solid newscaster. And Bill Maher really wanted him to admit, listen, you left because it was a bunch of Looney Tunes people. I think he called it a loony bin. And Chris Wallace did not want to answer that in the affirmative.
It is. You left Fox News.
But on Fox News Sunday, I told it straight, and they never second guessed me on a guest or a question. They let me do what I did, and I'm doing the same now at CNN.
No, I always thought you were the canary in the coal mine at Fox. I did.
I want to see how this metaphor ends up.
Well, the canary gets out, the mine collapses. That's my. No, I mean, you got out. I mean, it became, come on, isn't that why you left? Because it just became too hard to be in that loony bin?
You know, I am so excited about who's talking to Chris Wallace. I am so excited about CNN and looking ahead to the future.
You just said you're a big straight shooter, but you wouldn't answer that question about Fox?
You know, I have found message discipline. I know you're going to be talking to Chris Christie in a moment. Message discipline.
That's for politicians, not for us.
What?
We're the other side. We're the other team.
Yeah.
All right, I'll ask you. All right.
Yes, I'm thinking.
We'll talk it over in the commissary.
Actually, I was thinking Mitch McConnell. Just repeat the line over and over again.
Right. So, last question. You
We're done?
Yeah, almost.
Okay. All right. I'm having a good time.
I'm having a good time. It goes fast when you avoid questions.
Very good. So yeah, I don't know if he just has kind of a a bias towards professionalism, so he doesn't want to call out Fox News because he feels like that's not a professional thing to do and blah, 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 blah. But it's obvious. He had to have left a very good job that he had stable at Fox News to go off on another venture at CNN that wasn't as glamorous because he couldn't take being next to in the Fox News lineup, Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, all these wackos, right? But interesting that he doesn't want to admit that. Okay. And again, these bonus shows will be very fast paced. The second story, conservatives have put together, actually specifically the little sister, if I'm not mistaken, of Kayleigh McEnany, the former press secretary under Donald Trump, has released a dating app designed for conservatives. Take a look at their advertisement.
Today, we brought in a group of conservative young women and wanted to get their honest opinions about what they're looking for in the guys they date. What are you looking for in a partner?
They just have to be a conservative.
Definitely someone that wants to have kids.
I like an independent man. Personally, I like the alpha male vibe.
I want a man who really loves his family.
Definitely someone whose faith is important to them.
For me, it's someone who actually wants to meet my parents.
Why do you want to
Yeah, you know how liberals don't want to meet the parent of their significant other? What?
date a conservative?
For me, at least I know that we're going to start off with some shared values.
Well, the conservative men I've dated at least know how to treat me like a woman.
In my personal experience, conservative guys have better manners.
I like that they understand their role in the relationship as a man.
I just prefer my men to be masculine.
And what's the biggest red flag when it comes to dating?
A Democrat.
No Democrats.
A Democrat.
Can't be a Democrat.
A Democrat.
That's easy. A Democrat.
No Democrats. It's a no.
Find the right match. Download the right stuff today.
So there we go. If you're looking for that, then you got it. And apparently there was a lot of people going and trolling on the App Store and giving it really bad reviews. Right now, I think it has a 2.1 out of 5 stars. Oof. But they keep trying to do stuff like this, you know, free speech platforms that are designed for conservatives because all the conservatives they think are getting banned off of the main platforms. And then they fail. True Social isn't doing well and all these things. And I think even though it sounds, especially to conservatives, nice to be in a space that's all conservatives, they actually don't want that because so much of their identity is wrapped around liberals. Seriously. The amount that they talk about like owning the libs and how stupid liberals are is significant. And so whenever you put yourself in a space where there aren't any to dunk on, I almost said dump on. Oh my gosh. Ick. Dunk on, then it takes a lot of the fun out for them, I think at least. And then in the case of dating apps, do they really want to stick to only conservative men? I don't know. I do think dating is getting more and more split up based on your political views because how divided we are now, it's just hard to be romantic and super intimate with someone and spend all your time with someone who disagrees so fundamentally on some very important issues. And so I think it's fine if you want to try, but I've noticed myself not able to do that because all I want to do is talk about politics and debate with them. And that's not a good, relationship, just debating all the time. Probably not. But there it is, the right stuff if you want to go and download that. So we got more information about how the National Archives long ago was asking time and time again to get back the documents. And Trump's team just clearly was not complying, or Trump himself. And this just again breaks down the argument that, listen, you should have just asked for the documents. This is what we heard so many times. You didn't have to raid Mar-a-Lago. That was such a zealous response. And you are just doing this because you hate Trump. He could have given you the documents back peacefully. But of course, that's not the case. A newly released email shows an attorney for the National Archives begged lawyers for former President Donald Trump to help them locate presidential records in May of last year. The email, according to New York Times reporter Charlie Savage, that is such a cool name, would become the origin of the August 8th raid by the FBI on Trump's estate in Florida. An email from is that correct? It should be National Archive General Counsel Gary Stern to Trump representatives. Those people asked for cooperation on various issues with respect to capturing presidential records. The email, which was dated May 5th, 2021, noted problems remain that will likely require further follow-up and immediate assistance. We needed on numerous missing documents. Stern wrote, as the executive office of the president continues to transfer the electronic Trump presidential records into our custody, we have come upon several problems that we need your help in resolving. So back on May 5th, and you can look into the letter and all those things, but on May 5th, they were saying, okay, we need all the documents that are missing. This will require further action. And they didn't comply. So they were warned. He was notified time and time again that the National Archives needed, under law, to get back these documents. And Trump's team didn't care. I know you guys know this, but just more information keeps trickling out that further bolsters that fact. All right, jumping into our next story. Herschel Walker was explaining something about a police interaction that he was witnessing, and it reminded him of the fact that people don't think of police as also people, and they have their iPhones out, which is why bad things are going to happen with police interactions. What? I honestly can't explain it to you because I don't exactly know the points he was trying to make. So take a look at this.
Now, this is the toughest time to be in law enforcement. We got to support our men and women in blue, because everybody want to go home safe. Everybody want to go home safe. I tell this story about a couple of weeks ago. I was leaving the campaign office, and it was starting to get dark outside. And as I was leaving the office, I saw that the police officer had stopped this car. I still remember the car. The car was white with dark windows. And all of a sudden, as that officer was getting out of the car, where we were driving by, my heart started to flutter. I started getting nervous because of all of these iPhones.
Wait, what? Okay, the way that story was going, I thought he was going to say because of the tension between citizens and police at this moment in time, I was getting nervous that something bad was going to happen. But then he said, I was getting nervous because of all of these iPhones.
That all they do is videotape someone getting injured.
All they do is videotape someone getting injured.
Trying to help, never trying to do anything. Well, I started getting nervous because of it. And I said, wait a minute, maybe we need to reform the police. And I said, no. Why don't we reform the citizen? To show respect to them too. They have a family. They want to go home safe just like you do.
So I agree that police officers also have a family. They want to go home safe. All those things. But wait, what does the iPhone have to do with people getting injured? That's a bad thing that people are capturing whenever citizens get needlessly hurt by police officers, or even not. Even if you happen to capture a justified interaction, it doesn't hurt that you got it on video just in case. And that's bad because people are saying we need to reform the police, but really we need to reform the citizens. I honestly think, guys, that I'm getting less smart listening to all these clips for the show of him. Genuinely, I think I'm losing brain cells listening to this. I want to watch it one more time so we can really dissect that story.
Now, this is the toughest time to be in law enforcement. We got to support our men and women in blue, because everybody want to go home safe. Everybody want to go home safe. I tell this story about a couple of weeks ago. I was leaving the campaign office, and it was starting to get dark outside. And as I was leaving the office, I saw that the police officer had stopped this car. I still remember the car. The car was white with dark windows.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, as that officer was getting out of the car, where we were driving by, my heart started to flutter. I started getting nervous because of all of these iPhones. That all they do is videotape someone getting injured. Never trying to help, never trying to do anything. where I started getting nervous because of it. And I said, wait a minute, maybe we need to reform the police. And I said, no, why don't we reform the citizen? To show respect to them too. They have a family. They want to go home safe just like you do.
So you know how sometimes whenever you're talking to someone, a good way to know if they are actually listening is asking them to say back to you what they were just explaining. So let me try to do that with Herschel Walker. Let's pretend that I'm telling the story he just told to see if I capture what he said. Earlier, I was leaving my campaign office and I saw a white car with tinted windows. Ooh. And then a police officer pulled it over. And I started getting nervous because all these iPhones have been capturing citizens getting injured. And I'm thinking people are saying reform the police. I say reform the citizens because they're never trying to help with their iPhones. They're just capturing possible wrongdoing. Dang it. Sorry. No, wait. That wasn't honest to him. Wow. That's a brain bender, ladies and gentlemen. Holy smokes. So yeah, whatever that means. Let me know if you were able to comprehend it yourself. So, a really random story about the transition between Trump and Biden's presidency that came out of Maggie Haberman's reporting. It's just so random. Apparently, as he was on, or she, or the staffer was on their way out, some Trump staffer was stuffing photos of Hunter Biden into the air conditioning unit at the White House, which broke the AC unit, apparently. Let's read about this from Politico. While Donald Trump was attempting to prevent then President-elect Joe Biden from ascending to office in the months after the election, his staff was determined to create headaches, small and large, for their eventual replacements. The current occupant of the White House does not figure heavily in Maggie Haberman's highly anticipated book, Confidence Man, which chronicles Trump's rise from outer borough rich kid to New York real estate mogul to president. But excerpts of the new book shared with West Wing Playbook show how in the final days of his presidency, Trump's team took steps to sabotage their successors. Haberman reported that an employee of John McEntee, who served as Trump's director of the Presidential Personnel Office, stuffed copies of photos of Hunter Biden into an air conditioning unit at the White House, breaking it. So there's a little bit more about this I want to read. But first, just to respond to that. This is children. That's what children would do. I don't like that you're taking my place. I'm going to stuff photos of your son into the AC unit, breaking it. Wild. But then to continue on, the Haberman noted that top members of Biden's team were baffled by the behavior of their counterparts in the Trump White House. Even White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, who paid lip service to easing the transition, simultaneously seemed to encourage the cohort of Trump world figures pushing to keep the president in office. Quote, "I know the president's saying these things. We'll get it worked out," Meadows reportedly told his successor Ron Klain of Trump's questions about election integrity. Yet, Meadows did so while texting Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny Thomas, who was disputing election results and pushing for the internal elevation of election conspiracy theorist Sidney Powell. "This is a fight of good versus evil," Meadows told Thomas, according to Haberman. Yeah, what a wild time. For so long, I should say, it was a given that the current president and their administration would do everything possible to try to make it a smooth transition. And that would then allow the next administration to hit the ground running. But there were so many examples in relation to the vaccine operation, all these things, that it was just a mess. And so then the Biden administration got in office and had to deal with a big, blob of not well organized, jumbled up operations. And it made it a lot harder for them to hit the ground running, as I said. And it also just shows they really, really, really did not want to have to accept that they were moving on, that Biden would become the president, and that they should support in making that a smooth process. Insane. A newspaper clipping went viral on Twitter for a really hilarious reason. So it's this newspaper clipping blaming jazz music for the decline of the American family, or the small families that were being, called out, I guess, in this. And it's so funny because we're hearing the exact same rhetoric about whatever it is. Feminism is causing women to pursue their careers so they have small families, or the LGBTQ agenda, or wokeness. And it's hilarious to see just very similar language about something that we now realize to be so silly as something to blame for this. Jazz music blamed for small families. American women don't have enough children. They ought to have larger families. There has been an increasing tendency to inject jazz into hymn music. It ought to be abolished at once from all religious songs. So you can see there, that was a statement made by a bishop at the time, saying they're trying to inject jazz into our hymns, and that is what's causing small families to be an issue. I love it. And this just shows you it's so unserious. We don't have to listen to the constant rambles of people who want to convince you that progress means the end of civilization for all of us. That the reason the world's going to end is because everyone becomes gay or something, as we hear, or the emasculation of men, or the feminist movement allowing women to be independent and not needing to be stuck to a man 24/7 and all that type of stuff. Very interesting. A moment from the Ohio senatorial debate caught my eye, where the Democratic challenger of Ron Johnson, the incumbent Republican senator, just grilled Ron Johnson and effectively revealed the vile nature of his stance on abortion and the effects of that stance in the real world. Take a look.
The senator knows very well that the referendum won't happen with the legislature we have now. This is him trying to run away from his dangerous, out of touch, and extreme position. And when you take a position like that, there's so much that you don't always see. Let's talk about Texas as an example. There's a woman who had to be hooked up to a breathing machine because she had complications with her pregnancy and could not get an abortion. A 10-year-old girl in Ohio was raped and had to cross state lines to get an abortion. That's Ron Johnson's America. And 70% of the people think Roe versus Wade should be the law of the land here. Now, when we talk about children and unplanned pregnancies, Senator Johnson once went so far as to say it's not his responsibility to take care of our children in this country. Won't even support the child tax credit. Now, people are dealing with some very tough circumstances, but the senator would rather make a political point than to do the right thing to protect families and to protect the health of women. The senator knows very well that.
So the reason why that's just so effective is, one of the things I talk a lot about with one of my friends is stories make such a more significant impact on people's hearts than stats or the most logical breakdown that you could ever do. And so while I think I have the inclination to throw as many numbers at you as possible, or say, oh, why technically is my logical train of thought, better on this issue, and that's why you should agree with me, that's actually not going to sway people's hearts. So once you know you have the right position based on all the facts and all the research and etc., then you have to attach it to real stories that people can relate to and feel on behalf of, and that's how you sway their hearts and minds, I think. And so he does a really good job of saying, listen, this guy has a radical abortion stance, and let me tell you about the effect of some of these radical abortion ideologies that we've seen so far. And some of the ones he cites are just heartbreaking. And we've talked about so many of these where women are having to carry dead fetuses, risking their own fertility forever. You can get an infection, I'm pretty sure, when you hold a fetus after it's died that ends up making you infertile. As well as lives of women being threatened because of the radical laws, because they're not able to get the proper health procedures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's heartbreaking, but that's what it takes. Citing those stories is what it takes to connect to people's hearts and humanize this subject for those people who think they have a pro-life stance. But when you really understand the ramifications of that stance, maybe you'll see the world in a little bit more of an accurate light. And Ron Johnson is a radical senator. And I think for so long, it was the right who effectively characterized the left's position on abortion as radical, and the left would say, oh no, we're just pro-choice, but pro-lifers, whatever. I think we have to make clear, no, their stance is radical. Their stance leads to very negative outcomes and is devastating for a lot of people and is taking away the rights of people. And that's radical, and that needs to be understood by people, regardless of how it makes them feel hearing that type of language. So interesting stuff there. That is all of our stories for today. As a reminder, every future Saturday, unless I just feel really crazy one day, I want to release it to everybody, but for the most part, every future Saturday, this entire show that you just got will only be able to be accessed on Patreon. If you're thinking, I don't want to go through all the effort just for one extra show per week, again, you get you get the full show video form daily, hours before any of the stories are updated on the YouTube channel or uploaded, which means you're kind of getting the news closer to when the news is breaking, which I think is good and important. But also, even if all that doesn't sound worth a monthly subscription, it's also a huge support to what I do. That's the main reason, I think. I want to do as much as I can to make it worth it for you by providing extra value. But at the end of the day, I'm asking you to support what I do, to support the Luke Beasley Show, and hopefully help it continue to grow. But with that being said, again, patrons, I will see you next Saturday. Everyone else, have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.